This episode is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. Michelob Ultra is perfect for more than just the summer heat this year, because not only is it refreshing and crisp with only 95 calories, but Ultra is also the official beer sponsor of Team USA at the Olympic Games Paris 2024. Celebrate every point, race, and moment with Team USA and Michelob Ultra for the Olympic Games Paris 2024. Stock up on Michelob Ultra and cheer on Team USA. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2024 Anheuser-Busch Michelob Ultra Light Beer, St. Louis, Missouri.
There it is, that old familiar theme music, almost as good as hearing the music for the Olympics, which has been burned into our brains this week. It's almost as good as the theme song.
I thought you were going to say almost as good as hearing the dulcet tones of our voices.
Well, I don't think anybody would think that was true, but it is Sports by Northwest. Back from an unintentional hiatus, I'm Bill Oram, joined by Brenna Greene from Coin 6 here in Portland, Oregon. A lot to dive into, Brenna, and I just want to start. I want to plug a couple of things that I'm doing at the Oregonian real quick. A couple new features starting this week. I've got a new mailbag coming out later this week. Test driving some names for a new Bill Oram mailbag, but how do we feel about the Oram Forum?
I love a good rhyme.
So the Oram Forum is debuting
incredible.
Later this week. I've received a lot of great questions already, but if you do have questions that you'd like to see answered in print on Oregon Live and in the Oregonian, send them to me, boram@oregonian.com, on social media @Bill Oram. The other thing, new one dropped today, Bill Oram's Big 10. That is my 10 or so thoughts of the week. Not limited to 10, obviously, because as we know, a Big 10 can be any number of things, as proven by college athletics. So I believe there's 22 things in the inaugural Bill Oram's Big 10. With we'll see where it leads next week.
That is a classic journalism thing to be like, Big 10, I have 22 thoughts. Editor?
Brenna,
what editor?
The first thought, I'll tease the very, very first thought of this week's column, which was, will Oregon State continue to call itself the best college town in the Pac-12 in a two school conference? Is Corvallis the best college town in a 2-team Pac-12?
I heard you said some mean things about my beloved Pullman. Although, no, I'm not a WSU alum. I've spent a lot of time in Pullman, Washington. So you can catch these hands, okay? Like, what?
Pullman is perfectly fine. I like Pullman. I almost went to college in Pullman. That said, this battle is existential and survival. And, what if only one of these schools is able to survive the realignment roulette? In that case, no holds barred, down with Pullman.
Wow, this got really intense.
I have heard from some angry Pullman supporters this morning, so we'll see if that continues. Cougar Gold all the way.
Cougar Gold
Second
is
best
great.
cheese in-
Also, Pullman / okay, I know it's not Pullman, but it's like literally 10 minutes away, Moscow. Sneaky good places to eat in both of those towns. Anyways.
Okay, so Moscow's great. I just think that if you are a college town, having to say, but also there's another good college town in another state.
I feel you.
That makes us good. You're arguing against yourself. By the way, Cougar Gold, the number 3 cheese in the Pacific Northwest, behind Tillamook and Nestucca Bay Creamery.
Okay.
Out of Cloverdale. I recommend.
All right.
Nestucca Bay Creamery.
Here's something weird. I've never had Cougar Gold before. Continue.
That is weird. We should change that.
Yeah.
When I guess I don't know when you'll be in Pullman next. Next time you're in Pullman, we should change that. Okay, Brenna, I wanted to start
Pullman all the time now.
After I've finished plugging all my stuff.
Yes.
A lot going on. Alluded to the Olympics. The gold medals are flowing like champagne, and champagne flows and gold medals are flowing.
But I more appreciated that because it is in France, and that is where the
champagne is.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So that's where I thought you were going with that, but yeah.
The Oregon Ducks are officially in the Big Ten Conference. A couple of weeks ago, we had Big Ten football media days. The Ducks made their arrival with a giant inflatable duck on the White River in downtown Indianapolis. And since then, we have seen the Oregon Duck mascot making his way around Big Ten country at different schools, seemingly, Brenna, for the purpose of a single photo posted to Instagram. What do you think of the guerrilla marketing campaign that the Oregon Ducks are doing to announce their arrival in the Big Ten?
Wait, did you see that not only was he at different schools, which, by the way, one of those schools let him in. Nebraska let him in. Everybody else, no. So Nebraska, you guys get a little bit of a salute from me. Because
don't let the duck in the Husker house.
Because
is that how the saying goes?
That was
the corn
because
house.
Like you can either play with it and have fun with it and use it to your advantage, or you can do what the other schools are doing, which is, fine, whatever you want to do. But I would personally choose the option number one. But did you also see that the duck went to Lollapalooza?
I did. So, I mean, we're talking about it, so it's clearly working.
Yeah.
But when we talk about the increased expenditures of going to the Big Ten, we think about travel for, the athletes, the band, recruiting costs. I didn't factor in the Ducks' personal travel budget skyrocketing to such a degree. And whose budget does this come out of? Like the cheer team? The cheer team does not have the budget for that, I don't think.
Once again,
is this an over the top expense being funded by shadow investors? Phil Knight.
Once again, you are such a journalist for thinking about the travel budget, and I love that. I love that because that's exactly where both of our minds go. Oh, that's going to cost them a lot of money.
You know why I know it costs a lot of money? Here's why I know it costs a lot of money.
Has somebody been booking some trips?
A year ago, sports editor Joel Odom and I started talking about, well, I guess it wasn't quite it could have been about a year ago. We started talking about doing a preseason road trip to the previous 14 Big Ten cities. Maybe you start in College Park, Maryland, you work your way up to Rutgers, and then you go over to Penn State, and you work your way through the entire Big Ten. First of all, to do that driving is a haul.
Yep.
And some of the and if you try to do it geographically, I did try to map this out. You'd go from like Purdue up to in West Lafayette up to Evanston, I think. And then you would do the Minnesota-Wisconsin leg, Wisconsin-Minnesota. But that now leaves Lincoln, Nebraska, which is very far geographically from anywhere else in the Big Ten. It's hard to get to. Maybe with the exception of Iowa City, but there was a reason why Iowa City didn't work. Whatever it was, there was like a 15-hour drive somewhere in there, which does not include getting from Oregon to any of those Midwest places. So it's very challenging, and I can't imagine the cost of flying. So, curious about the budget.
And I'm sure they had to at least fly to start, And those baggage fees for the duck mascot outfit alone.
That's why you get the Delta Platinum credit card. No bag fees. Or you fly Southwest.
Yeah, but I think they would have more than 2 checked bags in that situation, but maybe not. And you've got all the camera gear because there's at least one. I think there's at least 2 other people on this trip with him. So you've got a camera guy as well because they're going to put something together. So that's.
Do you think this? Did they draw straws in the marketing department for who was going to get to go on this trip? I mean, it's a great assignment. I'm jealous of the duck and the duck's handlers.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, and you don't have to be sitting out at fall camp all day and, sweating your butt off. I'm down.
But isn't this what Oregon does well?
Yes.
And obviously they have to back it up on the field. And that, all this does look kind of silly and gimmicky if they go, 7-5 or something. 1, that's not happening. 2, this is how Oregon got here in a sense, right? By building interest, by building a brand, by having people talking about them, maybe not on the Oregonian Sports Podcast, but on ESPN, on College Game Day. I think I've mentioned before that I have a nephew who's from out of state. the only school he ever wanted to go to was the University of Oregon. And it had nothing to do with, the business school or, the School of Journalism and Communications. It was all about the branding and wanting to be an Oregon Duck. And they made that cool. And it's little piece by little piece that they did that. So, I mean, I happen to think that, sending the mascot to every Big Ten campus to take an Instagram photo feels a little extravagant and maybe not worth the bang for the buck. That said, this is the kind of thing they've been doing that has gotten them here. So they clearly know what they are doing. Somebody there knows what they are doing. And by the way, and maybe I've missed it, I don't see the other 3 schools joining the Big Ten doing this. Nobody's talking about, UCLA joining the Big Ten in the same way. No. I don't see Bob the Bruin or whatever their mascot is doing something like this. I don't see them being creative about their arrival in the Big Ten. So instead of talking about Washington, UCLA, or even USC, it feels like, and again, I'm saying this from Oregon, so I have a little bit of a bias filter in terms of what I consume and what I hear. It feels like they're talking about Oregon in the Big Ten.
And also having the Duck be at Big Ten headquarters the day that Oregon officially joined was another great idea. I mean, just thinking outside of the box, doing something a little bit different. The video of him with the cake is top tier content. Like, my gosh, it's just perfect. It took over the day. So, yeah, you're right. On one hand, it seems like a little much, but on the other, man, the Duck showing up at Lollapalooza, what other mascot is showing up at Lollapalooza in the country? Name me another mascot that would happen with.
Right.
It wouldn't. And so they've built this kind of extra brand around this guy that's it's cool and it's different. So kudos to them for doing what they're doing, even if it is costing them a lot of money.
Let's say this trip is costing, $20,000, something like that.
Probably.
Which $30,000.
30 seems a little much, but.
Are you telling me that doesn't pencil out for the University of Oregon with an athletics budget of $162 million? Yeah. And again, I get in trouble when I go down this rabbit hole, but this is where I talk about Oregon State and Oregon State building awareness and branding being worth the cost. And I don't know what the giant inflatable duck in Indy would be, or even what the Oregon State equivalent of that would be. But what did that actually cost? Oregon State's like, we got this, $100 million from the Pac-12 settlement. We can't go wasting it. Well, is it wasting it if you're spending $30,000 to be the most talked about school in the country for a day? So that's where I would say I've continued to implore Oregon State to find their version of that, whatever that is. The real Ducks, the non-quacking Ducks, the non-push. Well, they probably do push-ups too, not after touchdowns. What are your feelings right now? We've seen a couple of spring practice. Well, we haven't seen anything, but there have been some spring practices.
That's a hilarious notion.
We've now had Big Ten football media days where Dylan Gabriel, Jeffrey Bassa, and Terrence Ferguson represented the Ducks along with Dan Lanning in Indy. And then no Pac-12 media days. And then Oregon had its own media day last week in Eugene, where I think every player you can name, certainly more players than I can name, were available to speak with us, answer questions, talk about their golf game. A lot of golf talk at this thing. Where are you kind of at on the Ducks right now? And they came out, by the way, would be remiss not to mention the first coaches poll came out today, number 3 behind Georgia and
considering, I'm voting in the AP poll this year, so I'm assuming it went the same way as my ballot did, which Georgia number 1, Ohio State number 2, Oregon 3.
Right. So, which is correct. So obviously a lot of anticipation. What were your takeaways from the Oregon media day, and how does it leave you feeling about this season that is now only a few weeks away?
My biggest takeaway from the Oregon Media Day, which I am gonna plug, I need to post it. I aired a story on this on Saturday, and I have been very busy, so it needs to get posted. It's going to happen. My biggest takeaway from Oregon Media Day, well, I guess one serious one and one non-serious one. The serious one is everybody's forgotten about Noah Whittington, and I'm on the Noah Whittington bandwagon. Let's get it. Like, that guy gave an electric interview with like the most like just cool, calm tone the entire time. I loved that interview. It was easily my favorite one of the day. Yep. He was funny, he was sassy, he was reflective, and I'm like, man, this kid is coming back on fire this year, it feels like. You know, he said that he'd never had an injury like that before, and he's just
ACL.
Yes, ACL. Sorry, excuse me. Thank you for clarifying me. I'm not on a lot of sleep right now, thanks to Team USA, but we'll get into that later. I just
wasn't sure if everybody knew what his injury was, so I figured I'd buttress what you were saying.
I appreciate it.
With a factoid.
Thank you for buttressing me. So tore his ACL. He said, you know, he hadn't had an injury like that before, and it really reinforced how much he loves the game. So that was really, really big for him. My personal favorite was when I asked him, you know, if your guys' running back room is really good, but nobody's really actually like talking about it.
It's really good.
And he was like,
they have 3 dudes who I think are number 1 running backs.
Yeah.
Because so Noah Whittington, obviously, you know, kind of that third back the last couple of years, the injury early last year. Jay Harris coming over from Division II.
Yep.
I feel like I saw enough in the spring game to convince me that it's all transferable. He seems like the real deal. And then Jordan James is, you know, probably a better NFL prospect, at least than Bucky Irving was. I just think they've got 3 almost 4 down backs that they can turn to, which is such a luxury, especially when you already have the receiver depth that they have. And
running backs who can catch the ball.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I asked him, I was like, I feel like nobody's talking about you guys, but you guys are actually like, and it was something that I kind of realized mid-interview. I was like, man, like, this is a really good running back room and nobody's talking about it. And so, you know, I asked him that and he goes, yeah, no one's talking about us, but, you know, who cares? We're going to still go do what we're going to do. And then he was like, but people are going to be talking about us at the end of the year. And I was like, yeah, mic drop, buddy. So yeah, that's the one serious thing I took away. Well, actually, I'm going to go 2 non-serious things. A lot of talk about Dylan Gabriel's minivan. I mean, like, boy.
A real sliding doors moment for him.
Yeah. Oh, that was bad. I mean, the real star of Media Day was Dylan Gabriel's minivan, to be honest with you. A lot of talk about that. And then the other co-star of Media Day was NCAA Football 25. So many.
I'm too old. I don't care.
So many questions. In which, you know, it was fine to some extent, but it did get a little bit old at the end as somebody who was, you know, probably in 15 interviews that day, and there were 40 some odd ones that that I watched at the end. So that meant that every single interview I watched, there was a question about NCAA 25, which I understand. You got to ask everybody. You got to get that. I understand it. But yeah, those are my 2 co-stars of Media Day. So maybe they could put a PS5 in Dylan Gabriel's minivan and hook it up to the iPads or whatever that are in the back of the seats, and then we could just really, really coalesce everything. So,
one good interaction I had was with Jay Harris talking about running backs and funny moments. You know, okay, so one, I get the sense that Jay Harris is over talking about being a D2 guy making the jump to a Big Ten school. Like, I think that he's done that. He's ready to move on, which is fair enough. But I asked him, knowing that he's going to play a game in the Big House this year at Camp Randall,
that was
Autzen, great. All that. I said, what was the toughest place to play in Division II? And his response was, I don't know. I had 100 yards every game, so like none of them.
An all-time flex.
I was just like, I don't know. Was Shadron State? I don't know if they play Shadron State. I don't even know if Shadron State is Division II. But
never even heard
there's
of
got to be a place
State.
where they are loud. I don't know. I thought it was very funny and a very hyper confident football dude question or answer. So shout out to Jay Harris. 100 yards every game. Also,
just generally a room that is very quiet, I would say, understated as a group. Now, there is a group that you mentioned to me before this podcast that is not that way, that I think we do need to talk about as well, and that would be the wide receivers. So
yeah,
give me your thoughts on them during media day.
Well, I didn't spend a ton of time with them because I was just being pulled in other directions. But let me just say this about the wide receivers. Bo Nix's first year, he had Troy Franklin and not a lot else. We were, I remember, it felt like Chris Hudson was his number 2 receiver, and Chris Hudson had a case of the drops that year. And it just felt like Oregon had this dearth of receivers. Then last year, they started getting a little more production from the tight ends. Terrence Ferguson, but especially, bringing in Tez Johnson was a game changer. So now you had Troy Franklin and Tez Johnson. Bo Nix is gone. Troy Franklin's gone. But you look at the options that Dylan Gabriel has. I don't know how many All-Americans there are when all is said and done, right? But, when you look at, obviously Evan Stewart, Tez is back. The Gary Clark and Gary Bryant. Sorry, Gary Clark is a talented musician. Gary Bryant Jr. There's just a ton of weapons.
Yeah.
And Trayshawn Holden. These are guys who have, all played at incredibly high levels, and are, have been leading receivers and should have been leading receivers where they were previously. Obviously all transfers, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of reason to think that you could have 4 guys over the course of the year who have a 150-yard receiving game. And that doesn't even talk about Big Ferg, the senior, class of 2021, who is a big play target as well at tight end. So it just offensively, it just seems like Dylan Gabriel. And I don't know. We'll get into the season and maybe we'll start to get a better sample size. But on paper, I just don't really know how you stop this Oregon offense because they have so many weapons. Yep. Will Stein's extremely creative. The opportunities for deception where you're going to have 4 players on the field who are a home run threat at all times. It just seems like an absolute nightmare and headache for opposing defensive coordinators. I don't know. I don't just want to sit here and say, oh, they're so great. Aren't they great? But based on what we know now, looking at Oregon, they're so great. Aren't they great?
Yeah. Offensively, yeah, they, it's kind of astonishing the amount of weapons that they have. And not as many questions about the line this year either. The biggest question is at center. That exchange had some issues during the spring game, but I do believe that I really think that Poncho is going to get it together and be fine. And yeah, so then you look around and you're like, all right, you have this line that pretty much proved themselves last year.
Yeah.
You have all these wide receivers that are interchangeable and that if you need to change your game for a certain team, you can. They all not all of them look different, but they all have their own unique intricacies,
personalities on the field.
Yeah.
I would also it kind of reminds me of Washington last year, just in terms of the volume of weapons that Michael Penix had, where it was, they had 4 receivers who were, superstars. And I think that, Dylan Gabriel has a similar, embarrassment of riches.
Yeah.
With more help at running back than the Huskies had last year.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's just no way he's ever, I can't personally think of too many offense. I cannot think of an offense I've been around that's been this loaded before at the college level. And I mean, not that I've played. Before here, my college football covering days were Wazoo and Nevada, and sub in a little Eastern Washington. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I've necessarily covered the best college football that's ever existed.
Those Bo Baldwin offenses were pretty dang good.
I was not around during Bo Baldwin.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, he left by then. I guess I technically was around during Bo Baldwin because I worked for the athletic department for a year while Bo Baldwin was head coach when I was at Gonzaga. But back in the day, yeah, I was their on-field host for my senior year of college. Wow. Fun fact, everyone. Not very fun when there's a 5-second delay between what you say on a microphone in a stadium and when it comes out of the speakers.
Ooh, that's tough. Yeah.
Woo! Yeah. You can kind of come off sounding like you're, I'm just going to be frank, a little drunk at times. That's how it's, because all of a sudden you're hearing yourself say something 5 seconds after you said it.
Wouldn't the solution be to just be a little drunk and then you wouldn't care as much?
Maybe that's it.
You were in college.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's what I should have done. Man, we figured it out. Just, 10 years later? Okay, cool. So, it's not like I've covered the craziest amount of college football, but yeah, this is just an abundance of riches. I can't imagine that Dylan Gabriel has had near the help that he has had in the past in different offenses he's played in. So, I mean, God, just fingers crossed he stays healthy, man. Just fingers crossed. Because if he does, and this is not saying anything about anybody else, but if they have an injury in the wide receiver room, they're going to be okay. If they have an injury in the running back group, they're going to be okay. So,
and that also applies if it happens outside the room, like on the field.
Yes, Bill. Yes, it does. Thank you for that.
Okay. Oregon, very good.
Yes.
We've decided that Oregon is quite good. Oregon State has a scrimmage on Saturday. Another one a week beyond that. Still learning about the Beavers, figuring out their future as well. We'll probably come back to them another week when we know a little bit more. But I do want to, before it is too late in the month of August, to cue that great Olympic music, or maybe just our own theme song again.
I do want to say one thing about the Beavers that I'm excited about.
Okay, tell me.
I'm really excited about the Darius Clemens, Trent Walker, two-headed monster, Metro League guys who played together, who are both supposed to have great seasons for the Beavers this year. So
who's throwing them the ball?
Yes, exactly. I mean, the spring game definitely did not give us any conclusiveness on that. And I forget which one it was, to be honest with you, but one of the quarterbacks didn't even get to practice in the spring because he was injured.
Jabari Johnson.
Yes, thank you.
Giovanni McCoy, who probably has feelings about Moscow and Pullman, former University of Idaho quarterback, is the other guy in the mix. But Jabari Johnson, I think, is just from what I've heard and even what we saw in the spring game, I think might have some turnover issues, but the talent is obviously there.
Yeah, and then you have Ben.
And then you have Ben, Old Faithful, Mr. Reliable. You could do a lot worse than having a guy who is 9-2 as a starter, 7-2 as a starter, and one of those two being thrown into the Sun Bowl against Notre Dame last year, which was, lambs to the Wolves.
I don't remember that game. I don't know her.
Well, like I wrote off of the Sun Bowl against Notre Dame in El Paso last New Year's Eve.
Did you go to El Paso?
I did.
What? Oh my gosh. Wait, okay.
Hold
I had the worst work trip of my life to El Paso, Texas for the Sun Bowl a few years ago. So
loved it.
You loved it? That's great. It wasn't really El Paso's fault why things were bad, but yeah.
Did you go to Juarez?
Do we want to have story time here? It'll be like 5 minutes.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead and give me story time.
WSU went to the Sun Bowl in 2021. All right. The night before we were flying out, this is when everybody, all the flights were getting canceled because crews were getting COVID during that holiday season. So, wait, maybe it was 2022. It was 2022. It was one of those years. Anyways, whatever. Because I don't think they went to a bowl game in 2021. They didn't. It was 2022. So, gosh dang it. Now I'm all confused on myself. Somebody fact checked me in the world. One of those years, WSU went to the Sun Bowl. We get a notification the night before we're supposed to fly out that the flight that we are taking from Phoenix to El Paso has been canceled. So I had to call my news director at 10 p.m., wake her up out of a dead sleep because she was the only one who could book travel for us. We could not book travel for ourselves. And she had to get on the phone with the travel agency and get it all figured out. Finally, we decided, all right, we're going to just fly into Phoenix and then rent a car from Phoenix. We'll drive halfway to El Paso that night, and then we will get to El Paso the next day. So we get to Phoenix. There are a few telltale signs when we go into Phoenix that this is going to go wildly wrong. The first, obviously, being that the flight gets canceled from Phoenix to El Paso. The
6-hour drive from Phoenix to El Paso, by the way.
A what?
6-hour drive.
Yes. And we got in kind of late. It was late at night. It wasn't an early morning flight. So we get to Phoenix and we go to the rental car counter. We get a car. We drive out of there and immediately realize tire pressure light's on. So we have to drive back into the to the parking garage, get a new car. We go to In-N-Out. In-N-Out gives us the entirely wrong order. I'm like, all right, well, this is not starting off well. I get in the car. We're about, I'd say half an hour outside of Tucson. And my car, like, nicks a reflector on the side of the road. This car had, it was a brand new car. Pops the tire on the car. So we are on the side of we get off. Thankfully, we were right at an exit. We get off on the freeway. We had to wait for an hour for somebody to come get the car. Meanwhile, my weekend sports anchor decided, well, maybe I'll just try to jack this car up myself. Nearly decapitated himself because he was underneath the car and it fell. So finally, somebody shows up. We get a tire put on. We're driving, 30 miles an hour on the freeway with the flashers on. Obviously, I don't want to be driving this slow right now. A semi comes up behind us and starts, like, losing his mind, honking at us. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I did literally everything I could here. We get to the airport in Tucson to exchange our car out. We walk in, and there's this weird vibe in the airport terminal, the rental car terminal, I guess you could say. And we come to find out that mere minutes before we walked in, the lady behind the counter at our rental car place had passed out. Just full on passed out. Poor lady. Wow. So, like I've said, we've already had an hour sitting on the side of the road at this point. Then it takes another hour we didn't get out of the airport until like 1 a.m. It probably was later than that. Meanwhile, just a personal note, this is how I turned 30, was sitting on the floor of the rental car terminal in Tucson, Arizona. It was my birthday that day.
Okay. Piece that together.
Yeah. So then we get to the hotel. We slept like 5 hours max because we needed to get to El Paso. Mm-hmm. And we get to the car as we're leaving. My weekend anchor goes to open our tripod case because, like, we have tripods for our cameras, right? And so I'm just explaining this to people who don't know this. Yep. And goes to open our tripod case. He can't open it. TSA locked our tripod case. We didn't have keys. It wasn't locked to begin with. So we had to go back to the Tucson airport and have them unlock our tripod case. Meanwhile, it's, December 30th. There's nobody at the Tucson airport. And like one of the airport people comes up to me and they're like, if you're here the next time I come around, I'm going to have to make you move. Because I'm in my car because I just told them to take it inside and figure it out, basically. Because TSA needed to open it for us. And I'm like, sir, wrong person to say that to right now. Like, I'm just like trying to keep my cool. We get to El Paso. Everything was okay. The day of the game, this is the Sun Bowl. It was the antithesis of the Sun Bowl. It rained so hard in El Paso, we hydroplaned our way to that stadium. It was insane. Like, not a sound that's built for rain, first of all. But yeah, it was like 5 a.m. and we're just gliding our way to this stadium because we had to be on air for, I don't even know. I mean, we got on air at 6 a.m. and we weren't off air until, 9 a.m., whatever time it was. Meanwhile, by the way, it's pouring rain on us the entire time. We were right below where the press box is in the Sun Bowl. And so all the journalists we know are waving at us from the nice heated inside press box as we're just getting dumped on. Rained for like half a game. Was not a good game. And also when we got to the stadium, somebody didn't see me, I guess, and was parked on the side of the road and decided that right as I passed was the correct time to get out of their spot on the side of the road. And if my weekend anchor had not yelled, that car would have been totaled because I had to like full on do this. And I wouldn't have seen the guy because I was already past him at that point. And my weekend anchor was like, oh my God. I'm like, is El Paso trying to kill me? And then there was some stuff with media afterwards that wasn't good. I won't rat some people out, but it was not good. Media did not get what they wanted. Let's put it that way. We did not get enough time with players whatsoever. It was very bad. So anyways, don't have fun memories of the Sun Bowl, but I'm glad that you do.
The weather was fabulous when I was there.
Wow. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you. Okay.
Washington State lost that Sun Bowl 24-21 to Central Michigan, and it was in fact in 2021.
Okay,
so
there you go.
There you have it. Also, don't you know what year you turned 30?
Yeah, that would make sense, but I got up early this morning to watch Olympics. So once again, that's just gonna be
what
my
an amazing
excuse.
Segue!
That's
a professional broadcaster. Amazing segue.
I'm great at this. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So the Olympic Games are well underway. In fact, nearing their finish.
Yes.
In Paris. Great city, Paris. Never been, but I hear it's a great city. I'm curious, Brenna, if there has been, and obviously we could have spent an entire podcast talking about Ryan Crouser. Gymnastics has been incredible. We have 2 local medalists in gymnastics, in Jade Carey and Jordan Childs as of this morning. But on just a broader note, I'm curious if watching these Olympics, you have found yourself watching anything that you would not have known you would find yourself captivated by, or if you've gotten yourself invested in any particular event.
Probably beach volleyball would be the most random one, but I still feel like that's fairly mainstream.
Sure. Why? Are you watching the women, the men, both?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, equal opportunity on that one. I have found myself watching some 3-on-3 stuff, which that was fun. I mean, it's technically still going. It's going to start up again soon, actually. Yeah. Which, by the way, I do have do you want to know a very random 3-on-3 fact that relates back to this great state of ours?
I thought it was going to be another Sun Bowl story. Yes, go ahead.
No, not Sun Bowl. Thank God.
Is it about Cameron Brink not playing in the 3-on-3?
She is not,
because of her
obviously.
Bad injury?
Yeah. No, it's about the fact that there is a girl on Germany named Sunny Greiniker, who I went to Gonzaga with, who I also sat next to when I graduated college. Very weird. I show up to my seat. We're getting in line and I'm like, of course I'm sitting next to a women's basketball player as I graduate, naturally. But Sunny Greiniker when she was in high school, did an exchange year at Willamette High School.
I think my mind is blown. Finish telling your story and then I'll tell you why my name is blown.
Okay.
My mind is blown.
Okay. So Sunny went and played at Willamette for 1 year, won a state championship, and was the 5A player of the year the 1 year she was here. Bill is freaking out, so now I got to hear what you have to say.
So I've only ever known one person whose last name was Greinecker, and it was an exchange student at my high school named Alex Greinecker, who, when I go to Sonny Greinecker's Gonzaga page, under miscellaneous, parents are Yoshin and Barrett Greinecker, has a brother named Alexander.
Probably a brother.
Not implausible that there's a second German man named Alex Greinecker, but then I look at Sonny Greinecker's picture. That is Alex Greinecker.
There you go.
And he played basketball with us my junior year, I think. He was not the state player of the year, but I just learned something very interesting that I did not know.
Well,
how about that?
There you go. We have
Stucca High School. This kid came on a foreign exchange program to Pacific City, Oregon. I think lived more like in Sand Lake. I am now all in on the German 3-on-3 team.
Well, congratulations. They play at 1:00 for the gold. So
that's you have to, if I'm not able to watch it, you have to tell me if they show her brother in the stands.
Okay.
I got to find. I'm sorry. I'm so. This never happens where you are totally shocked. Oh my.
This is lovely to watch. If you aren't watching this on YouTube, Bill's face right now is just incredible.
Well, now I'm Googling Alex Greinecker, and it seems like he's like a highly successful kind of person who gives TED Talks. You really lose track of people after high school. Let me tell you, there were only like 200 people in my high school. You know everybody.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that my fun fact has resonated so much with you. This makes me so incredibly happy.
Okay, I don't know if anybody from my hometown listens to this podcast, but if any of my South Tillamook County people are listening and know anything about this, please reach out. Email me, boram@oregonian.com, or on social media at Bill Oram, or I still have a Tillamook phone number. Call me. Let me know what's going on. How did I not know this?
There you go.
Okay.
Sonny Greinecker. I
now have something for the next Bill Oram's Big Ten.
There you go. Yeah, she.
Wow.
I mean, she was a successful player at Gonzaga. She played for Kelly Graves, who obviously now the head coach at Oregon.
So what are the chances of me having ever pieced this together? Like my life would have gone on for the next, however many years I have left, hopefully at least 20, and never have known this.
Well,
wow.
Okay. I'm so glad we could have this blast from the past moment together.
My stories about the Olympics are going to pale in comparison, and right now I'm just I feel like I need to go. Okay. The event that I found myself watching yesterday that was not really on my radar, that I was totally captivated by, was the final of the women's high jump.
Ooh.
I don't know if I have ever
that was fun.
Actually watched the high jump before.
Oh, wow. Really? Okay.
Not closely.
I guess I just kind of lump track and field all together, so I don't see it as like something that's random, but I understand it was good. I watched it as well.
Right, and like I'll usually watch the sprints, and I've become a real fan of the 10,000 meters. Like I love that race because it becomes like combat in the final, the final 400 meters.
Yeah.
Really the final 100. And I'll watch the throwing events and all that, but like the high jump just had never really grabbed me. Mm-hmm. Because it just seems. Oh, it's so precarious. It causes me anxiety to see that little bar wobble and then fall. Like it stresses me out. But I was so, again, I'll say captivated watching that final. The women who participate like have such joy in that event, and it is such a you have to psych yourself up event. And so, there was a woman from Australia who I think ended up winning the silver, and watching her psych herself up every single jump, even though it got more and more dire. It's her third jump to stay in the competition. I just really loved that. the personality that the athletes brought to their individual approaches. And then the story, I mean, of course, like any event, the stories about, where they're from and what they represent.
Yep.
A woman from Ukraine ended up winning that event. And it was the first gold that Ukraine had won in these games. And so it was just a first individual gold. So I thought there was such drama and tension, and I just loved it. And I had, again, never really paid the high jump that much mind. And I couldn't turn it off. And it was one of those things where my wife and I had some errands to run yesterday, and I kept putting her off because I'm like, this is almost over. This is almost over. And then they would clear, one more, centimeter or whatever. And it went on. I mean, just unbelievable. Great drama. Love the Olympics in general. And I love finding new sports, new events. Not that the high jump was hiding. I know about the high jump. I just had never invested the time to pay attention, frankly.
The thing I learned the most from that event yesterday is watching them, like, where they took off from, where they started their run to do the jump was on the track. Yeah. And so they kept having to stop to let the events on the track go by. And I was like, the
1500 heats were going.
Yeah. And I was like, man, that is crazy. Like, oh, nope, you can't go yet. There's an event that's happening. Like, that's so crazy to do to a competitor, but that's what was happening. So I was like, well, that's something new. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize they didn't have their own little area and that they have to wait. So,
well, and then the other thing is, in a lot of these cases, they are jumping high enough. They are jumping these heights.
Yeah.
It's the timing of where you come down that is causing them to hit the bar. So they are jumping the height, but then it's the technique required to get all the way over the bar. Of course, that is the Fosbury flop, perfected by Oregon State alum Dick Fosbury, statue on campus at Oregon State. But it was fun. It was just fun. And if you told me when I woke up yesterday that I was going to be completely invested in the women's the women's high jump, I wouldn't have known. So shout out to the women's high jump and its competitors, because that was a lot of fun to watch.
I just want to say shout out to Jordan Childs, and specifically Jordan Childs' coaches, for making me getting up extremely early this morning to watch some gymnastics worth it.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
You watched it live. I didn't. Give us the Reader's Digest version of how that went down.
The Reader's Digest. Is that possible for me to do? So yeah, I mean, basically, like, she does her routine, and they go and they get the score, and it's like, oh, well, she's not gonna medal. She was the last person to go in that event, so it was like, well, it's over. She's not medaling, whatever. And then you can hear her be like, oh, you're submitting an inquiry? And I'm pretty sure, originally thought it was for Simone's routine, and she was really confused as to why they were submitting an inquiry for Simone's routine right then. And then they're like, no, it's for your routine. And she was like, what? She's like, okay. And so she just kind of like sat there. Meanwhile, the Romanian gymnast, who was third, was already up on the floor with a flag in her hands.
That's brutal.
Yep. And was like about to go celebrate and do her thing. And all of a sudden, Jordan looks at the screen, and she has gotten a whole 10th of a point more. And she has third. It was wild to watch. It was one of, like, the craziest, just like, rope-a-dope sports moments I've ever seen, where it was just like, okay, this is that, and then it's like
more rope-a-dope than watching Noah Lyles come back from last place in the 100.
That was pretty crazy.
Win by a chest hair,
and to have the NBC broadcast call the race wrong.
It's fine.
I feel for them.
We'll fix that in post-production.
They kind of did. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad they didn't totally doctor it, because that would have just looked ridiculous. But they did doctor that race. The race that aired in primetime last night, the commentary that aired in primetime last night, was not what aired originally. There was I
can't believe I went to the high school with the brother of a German 3-on-3 Olympian. I'm not going to get over this. I just texted our coach to ask if he knew. If he responds, currently the head coach of the North Douglas girls, 1A state runners up last year.
Yeah.
if he knows anything about this, because I feel like I'm going to blow his mind the way you just blew my mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, imagine telling, 20, if she wins, I'm going to do it. Like, I'm going to tweet this. Like, imagine telling 22-year-old Brenna that at college graduation, the girl next to her who, I don't know if I want to, let's put it this way. It wasn't her. We had the most entertaining section at my college graduation, and that was due to someone who showed up to graduation. I don't know. He'd had fun the night before. Let's put it that way. And so, yeah, anyways, I'm not going to get into the shenanigans that transpired, but there were
back to the Olympians. Yes, we don't need the Olympics and Gonzaga partying.
Sunny was a part of those. She had a moment in those. Anyways, so she had a moment, but I'm not gonna burst her bubble because it was really funny. Yeah, imagine telling 22-year-old Brenna that at college graduation she was sitting next to a future Olympic gold medalist. And like, by the way, Germany is favored to win. They've only lost one 3-on-3 game this entire tournament. So. Yeah, I get you, man. It's really weird and crazy. So we'll see what happens.
What a small world.
In the next hour.
Okay.
But the Jordan Childs thing was insane. And I don't really know if I have any more thoughts on it other than that. Thank you for making it worth it for me to get up early this morning, because boy, was it kind of not feeling that way. And then all of a sudden it was instantaneously worth it. So, yeah.
Jade Carey, silver on vault.
Bronze.
Crushed it. What did I say? Bronze? I said silver, bronze. Yeah. Excuse me. And crushed it in the team competition as well. And then I would also like to shout out 3-time gold medal shot putter Ryan Crouser. Great piece in the LA Times this week about Ryan Crouser by the legendary David Wharton, talking about the Crouser slide, his refined technique, and also the incredible challenge of staying healthy through these Olympics. Obviously he was not healthy coming in or throughout the year, and still dominated, which, I mean, and
he said after that this one meant the most to him. This gold meant the most to him because of that.
Well, and he's 31. Is that right? I mean,
I think you're right. Somewhere around there. Father Time is undefeated, but there is a little carrot of 2028 out there for him, which would be pretty remarkable. But, don't doubt that guy. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I just want to say that I might not have been watching. I may not have been watching like any fringe sports, but I said this on social media and it's really true. These Olympics have become like my entire personality over the last 5 days. I literally have a schedule mapped out on my phone of what I'm watching and when.
Wow.
I don't know what is happening. I mean, I do know what's happening to me. I just really like sports. But I have become obsessive. It's kind of scary, and I'm glad that they're going to be over soon because I cannot keep up the torrid pace that I am at.
You are like the Katie Ledecky of Olympic viewing.
Yes, that's me. Let's do it. Yeah, I mean, it's embarrassing the times I've been getting up at. So,
example, what time's the alarm going off?
Well, today the beam final was at 3:45.
Yeah, that's embarrassing.
That's the earliest I've gotten up.
That reminds me. I've done that for the World Cup. Like there have been some World Cup matches I've done that for. So
yeah, 3:45. Okay. There was a 5 a.m. one, a few because Team USA Soccer had a 5 a.m. match. There were a few other ones.
Mine is more. I wake up and then I see what's on. Like I see what's happening.
I get that,
which seems a little, but mad respect, Brenna. Mad respect.
I don't know. I don't know if it's respect. It's something. It's something.
It's an acknowledgement of your devotion to the thing.
Go America, baby.
I do see that you are in uniform as well. For those watching on YouTube, the YouTube channel, Brenna is wearing her for those of you not watching on the YouTube channel, Brenna is wearing her American flag sweater that she probably knitted.
Courtesy of the lovely fashion booths at the St. Paul Rodeo, in which I dropped way too much money at. Whoopsies. Oh, well.
Rodeo fashion booths. Some good options.
I'm not actually, there was a lot of good clothes there.
I was at the Malala Buckaroo while you were at the St. Paul Rodeo, and the Malala Buckaroo had some choices as well. Okay, Brenna, I have got to go find my junior year yearbook. Yeah. I am going to find this photo of this person. I'm going to send it to you. I might have to put it on social media. I might have to write an entire column about this, discovering a connection to an Olympian. I might have to watch the 3-on-3 final now. This is unbelievable.
1 p.m. And by the way, I got to go because the U.S. women play in the bronze medal match in 2 minutes. So,
okay.
Priorities.
All right. Excellent. This will all be over by the time anyone listens to this podcast.
Yep.
But
nobody's going to care, but we do.
Thank you all for listening. Thank you for writing this out. We've had some fun times, some random threads, but that's what makes it fun. I'm Bill Oram, joined, as always, by the Olympic-loving Brenna Greene, the Katie Ledecky of Olympic viewing. We'll be back next week. Talk to you later.